how are you? So I'm sitting here making me some food, and the funniest thing to me about it is that I'm sitting here making food, but I'm also playing Gold as a virtual console. And as I'm sitting here, I keep on thinking back to myself about when the games came out and things like that, and it just reminded me of a whole bunch of funny memories. Like, people say they hate the fact that Nintendo does 2 games for every single release. But also, me and my brother love Pokemon. You know the easiest way to fix a sibling dispute and they both like the same franchise? Get them the opposite versions of the game. Yes, it's going to be more, but if you get them the same version or a version to share, I can bet you money they will fight. Because on the Switch you can make multiple profiles and share a version, but when it came to the older games, you couldn't. The cartridge was all you had. If someone else wanted to play a game, they could not save that game until after they deleted your game file, which means if you had every single Pokemon as shinies, your sibling could easily come along and delete that whole entire game file. And that actually reminds me of a funny story, which I'll say in 1 second. But I was thinking about it, and I keep thinking about when Ruby and Sapphire and Diamond and Pearl were being released. My brother and me were there for the midnight releases, so we went outside GameStop. He waited in line because he was 14, and I mean, he's over 6 feet. At that time, he was 5'4". He looked like he was 18 and could hurt someone. So he was fine. But me and my mom would be out inside the car because we're 3 years apart, and I was younger than him. I couldn't handle the cold, and I looked so small because I'm only 5'2" while he's 6'7" nowadays. At that time, I was only 3'2", so I was little. But I always thought it was funny that every single time my brother would pick the version he wanted, then I would get whatever version was left. Like when it came to Ruby and Sapphire, he wanted Sapphire, I got Ruby. When it came to Diamond and Pearl, he wanted Diamond, I got Pearl. Which for me was fine because I still got to play the games, but I just got different Pokemon. And the same thing kept happening up until Gen 6. At that time, my brother was already inside of college. He didn't live at home. I was the only one at home. So he physically bought his copy, which turned out to be Y, and my mom had bought me the copy of X because I was finishing up high school when Gen 6 came out. And I always think it's funny whenever I think about those times because it's like, why are you complaining that they're making 2 cartridges? If you have an older sibling that's going to fight, that actual second cartridge physically saves you time and also saves all the fighting that's going to happen. But right now, as I'm playing through Gold, one of the old memories that came back to me was when Diamond and Pearl was being released. They hit it so well. And one of the things that Celebi did was they were able to get their list on every single Pokemon. I remember begging my mom for permission to use her printer to print out in color, and this was 18 pages at the time, every single Pokemon, their picture inside the game, their physical. I printed off the whole entire Sinnoh Pokedex and the whole entire National Pokedex. It took up a lot of paper, but I still did it. And I remember taking that to school and looking through it for months until Diamond and Pearl came out, trying to figure out my team, figure out what I wanted, figuring out everything. And I just remember that. But it always made me laugh that one of the main things that happened as we grew older is my brother doesn't like Pokemon anymore. But since I have trouble with like jobs and stuff, he always helps me to make sure I get the new game. Like when Scarlet and Violet were coming out, I couldn't afford it at the time they came out. And I texted Junior asking him, hey, are you playing Scarlet and Violet today? He texted me back saying, yeah, I am. Are you? And I said, no, I couldn't afford it. We couldn't make it this year. So he actually went to the store 5 minutes after I had texted that, went to Walmart, bought a virtual console version, bought the virtual little pass. You just buy the card and the code is there on the receipt, you put it in. He bought that, and he physically asked me, which one do you want, Scarlet or Violet? I said Violet, because at the time, purple is my favorite color, so I was like, I want the one that's my favorite color. Nowadays, I will say Scarlet over Violet more for the fact that I like the Paradox Pokemon better, but the games are still the same. It just depends on your own preference on which Pokemon you think are cooler. I don't personally like the robot-y looking Pokemon. I like the past ones that kind of show more history to the Pokemon. You can kind of see where they came from. But as I'm playing through Gen 2, I kept on thinking that every single game is that people nowadays say Pokemon is too easy to catch. You can go up to a Pokemon and catch it. Even like inside Scarlet and Violet, You can jump. You don't even have to go to the academy to go through the whole entire game, the whole entire map, and catch all the Pokemon. They're going to be hard to catch, yes, but it does not mean it's not possible. I've caught level 65 Pokemon my level, and my Pokemon are level 10. I've physically done it multiple times through playthroughs. But I always think about that and think, inside the older games, that would not have been really possible. Because nowadays, you're given a certain amount of money when you leave your home. They even started that inside of other generations. I'm not sure which one they started it in, I can't remember. But they did start that. And like inside Sun and Moon, you get $30,000 to leave, which is enough to buy as many Pokeballs as you need. But inside the old games, you're given only about 2,000, enough to buy 10 Pokeballs. Some games like Gold and Silver give you 3,000, and if you can beat your rival, 3,300. That's at most about 17 Pokeballs, and until you get to the higher part of the game, you are not going to have enough money to keep replacing those Pokeballs. So you have to be more cautious about what you're catching and how many Pokeballs you're using. Nowadays, you can just keep throwing and throwing and throwing. Sooner or later, it's going to stay inside that Pokeball because that's the RPG of the game. But inside the old games, they had such low catch rates, especially inside Gold and Silver, that nowadays a lot of people would complain about. But I honestly like that fact for the simple fact that whenever you find that 1% encounter Pokemon, like I just spent 3 hours looking for one Dunsparce. It used up all my Pokeballs. I had to kill it, come back and spend another 3 hours looking for it again. And that's a 1% encounter inside Dark Cave, inside any of the Gen 2 games, the remakes, or the old ones. And I always find it so funny that I felt more joy out of that because of the fact it was harder. Like inside of Sword and Shield, a lot of the Pokemon are available in the wild. It's not as hard as people want to believe. I mean, the graphics are the main part that a lot of Pokemon fans are looking at when they're older fans like me, because we physically are looking at something like this. Like, you see, I'm playing Gen 2 on the Virtual Console. That's what the graphics used to look like. So, for everyone who's complaining about the graphics of Scarlet and Violet, Legend of Zelda had 17 years. Pokemon fans have made it to where Pokemon has to release a game every year, which unfortunately is kind of like Kirby and a few other games I can think of, where every year they release a game, but unfortunately they don't have time to put in what they want. Which is kind of why I like the fact that, one, they did not announce a remake, they announced Legends, and two, the fact they're looking at Kalos and have the Z in it, and there used to be an undisputed rumor out of Nintendo that they actually had in the works a plan for Gen 6 to have Pokemon Z as a third game inside the Kalos games, but it never went past. Which tells me that probably in the truth, Gen Z, Legend ZA, is actually the Gen Z game. And they're physically changing it to go with the Arceus idea because they saw how well that did. But I just thought about that, and I just wanted to talk about it. Thanks for listening. Bye!